We are live, I think. Test, test, test. Words, words, test words, test words, test words. I think that should be working, but you guys are going to have to shout at me to find out, aren't you? So if you can hear me, whack a number 1 in the chat. That'd be massively appreciated. And then I know that everything is working. And it also means that we know that that is working. Because that has some times of not working. And okay, there's a 1. That was quicker than I expected. Thank you very much, Jimmy Paddy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to a relatively a number 1. You smart-ass, Mark. I respect it, but you're a smart-ass. Welcome to a very quick stream. I'm just going to very quickly fix something. Hold on. There we go. That should refresh it. And welcome to a little bit of a natter that we're going to be having about all kinds of bits and bobs. We are going to be talking about the Elan Meslier stuff, in that there are apparently a few different clubs that have a little bit of an interest in signing him in January, which is going to be a good thing for Leeds if we can make sure that that happens, but we'll find out if we can. A little bit of stuff on other bits that we're planning for January. I want to FaceTime Hush. No, I refuse. I will never hush. And also just other bits and bobs, including the fact that Mateo Joseph is about to be playing a game of football. In 9 minutes' time, he kicks off for RCD Mallorca against Real Sociedad, and that should be quite good and very interesting, because a lot of different sort of lineup listing things are saying that Mateo Joseph is playing on the right wing for Mallorca, which is going to be quite something, because I didn't think he did that ever. But before all of that, I'm going to very quickly flash something up on the screen. If you are watching on a television, get your phone at the ready, because you're going to have a QR code to take a little bit of a look at. If you are not on a television, if you're on a mobile, then I'm going to end up whacking a quick thing in the chat for you to go to. And I'm not even going to be mad if you leave in order to do the thing, because you're going to have to leave in order to do the thing. Because I am going to ping you all in the general direction of, if I can get this to work, please work. Here. The Football Content Awards, because the Leeds United View, also known as Jer's podcast, the Leeds View, has been nominated for Best PL Podcast. Also, I believe, Best Club Creator under the Premier League category. In addition to that, All Leeds TV have been nominated for a few things. I'm going to whack the link in the chat a few times there. If you fancy, and if you haven't yet, or if you've got multiple devices, because you can vote on different devices if you're the same person, I would just recommend changing the email address that you're noting yourself down as when you're doing so. That would be massively appreciated. Partially right, because the awards are being held in Elland Road this year, and Leeds United have an incredible ability to not lose at Elland Road. And if, imagine, it gets to the end of November, this ceremony is going on, and Leeds United, the football club, haven't lost at home for such a long time, but then we end up losing a football content award. That'd be a shame, and it's a shame that you guys can avoid. So, give this QR code a little bit of a scan. Vote for All Leeds TV in their categories. Vote for the Leeds United View. I know it's the Leeds View now, but that's the way that it says it on the website. For Best PL Podcast, Best Club Content Creator. That'd be massively appreciated. Thank you very much. Anyway, into the main chunk of story, which is surrounding Illan Meslier, Leeds United's former first-team goalkeeper, who, I will be honest, everyone that is here will be aware of this, I had a little bit of a liking for. Because I was of similar age, I know how it feels to be a goalkeeper, and I know how it feels to be a goalkeeper that makes a lot of mistakes. I say this. Earlier this week, I felt quite good, because we did lose at 7-a-side quite badly, but it wasn't my fault, and that always feels quite good as a goalkeeper. But Meslier has had a fairly torrid time to his later career when it comes to being at Leeds United. So after the Swansea match, he was immediately dropped to the bench where Leeds United played against Luton. Leeds United got a point against Luton, which admittedly isn't exactly what you would want. However, for the rest of the season, Carl Darlow did his job after Illan Meslier hadn't been doing his, and then the story just kind of tells itself. Illan Meslier is going to find himself on the way out, and the only reason that he's registered at all this season is because you kind of have to register. It's ideal to register 25 players if you might need them, and he was still under contract because we couldn't shift him in the summer. However, Rumour has it that Illan Meslier may be potentially on the move in January instead. So January is when clubs from abroad are able to just approach the player and say, look, do you want to come to us on a free in the summer? If he agrees a contract with any of those clubs and they agree, sure, we'll do it on a free in the summer, then Leeds United will be in trouble. However, there are rumours of 9 different clubs from around Europe having an interest in Illan Meslier, which is a very, very positive thing for Leeds United because the position that we're in, we need to ideally get some money for the guy because, let's be completely fair here, he's not going to be sticking around, he's not going to be of use, you might as well get something out of him. In this case, finances, which is absolutely spectacular. The only way that you do that is by selling him in January and is by setting these 9 different teams against each other in a little bit of a bidding war. It is completely up to Elan Meslier where he goes, to be completely clear with that from the beginning. However, once we have an idea of where he wants to go, we can then ask the club that is potentially looking at signing him, and would you like him a little bit earlier? Because if a club is looking at him and kind of going, okay, we could kind of do with a goalkeeper right now, they might want him in January rather than waiting all the way until next summer. A good example of this is the club that he was rumoured to be heading over to in the summer, which is Lorient. Now, Lorient very much needed a goalkeeper when they came up because they were in a fairly dangerous situation. They didn't have the best of teams, and they, as a result of that, you're going to kind of need a good goalkeeper to shore you up a little bit and make sure that everything is nice and solid and good. This is a version of the French Ligue 1 table sorted by expected goals conceded, goals allowed, the amount of goals that they let in that they shouldn't have. So, for example, and to summarise this, XG is how many goals a team should score. Expected goals against is how many goals a goalkeeper is expected to have conceded. That's also known as post-shot XG. If you've conceded more than that number, you're probably not doing too well. Yeah, Lorient's goalkeeper is at the top of this list, having conceded 4.3 more goals than they should have in not very many games so far this season. Specifically, he is conceding 0.86 more goals per 90 than he should be, which ain't good, which means that a team like Lorient, who are going to be quite desperate to stay in Ligue 1, were they in Ligue 1 last season, or have they just been promoted? I'll have a very quick look. I do not see Lorient here. Lorient have only just been promoted. So they're going to need a decent keeper in place, because when it comes to attacking and going forwards, they're not in that bad of a situation. Sorting by goals for, they're not in the bottom 3, which means that they're not in the automatic relegation places. They're not in the relegation playoff positions. And then you look at the goals against, and you see, that's a little bit of a problem. That's where they're in a little bit of danger. And then you look at expected goals against, and that looks even worse, because they shouldn't be conceding that many, but they are. Now, whilst they're in this situation, Lorient are not going to be able to feel safe in the slightest, which means that they're going to need to get someone in to try and solve the keeping situation. I'll have a specific look, actually, if I have a look at the player stats for the goalkeepers. That's the wrong version of the player stats. Hang on. Player stats. Nice, there we go. And I'll sort by... There we go. So they've got 2 keepers, right, that they've tried. They've tried 2 different goalkeepers this season so far. They tried Bingaru Kamara, who is 28 and is a reasonably good goalkeeper most of the time. He's played 3 matches, conceded 8, when the numbers say that he should have conceded 5. Not a good position to be in, but yeah, that's fine. Instead, you play Yvonne Vogo, that's it, who is Swiss keeper, a little bit older, so he's a little bit more experienced, and he's played twice, and he has conceded 5 goals when he should have conceded about 3.5. So 4, maybe. You've got a bit unlucky. 5, that's pushing it a little bit. So Lorient are in this weird little danger spiral where if they get relegated again, they're in a little bit of trouble. And the player that you can potentially get on board to fix that is going to be someone like Elan Meslier, who, admittedly, for a Leeds United fan, isn't going to be the most exciting of signings, and you might look at it and kind of go, well, why would they want to sign this guy? Because he's got experience of top-tier football. And it's not great experience, sure, but Mvogo doesn't really have that, and Bin Kamara doesn't have a ton of that. So that's why clubs will want to sign him. And that's why they'll want to sign him during this season rather than waiting until next season and ending up in this weird, unpleasant spiral where they're just going to cause themselves a lot of different problems, which I think is going to be an interesting one to keep a little bit of an eye on. Similarly, by the way, Paris FC doing a little bit better than a lot of people expected, conceding more goals than they should be, but decent levels of XG, up with PSG. They've got the same XG as PSG at the minute, which ain't anything to be sniffed at. And all Ilan Cabal ain't having a bad time over there. I wish we would have signed him now. He scored 3, assisted 2 in 5 games, which, honestly, fair enough. Plus the note that is made by Michael here, that Ilan Sale would very much help with the PSR stuff. In terms of PSR, Leeds United are in a little bit of a corner. We don't have a ton of money to spend because we don't have that much PSR flexibility. Selling players gives you that. It also opens up a little bit more in terms of wages. If we are to sell Illan Meslier in January, rather than waiting until the summer, we're going to be a way better situation. We'll get something out of an asset that we're all expecting to get absolutely nothing out of, which is nice and will mean that we are potentially able to do a little bit more in January without having to say, well, now we definitely have to sell in the summer. It's a better spot to be in addition to the fact that we are looking at doing some bits and bobs in January, with a recent report coming out stating that Leeds United have an interest in doing at least 2 moves in the January window. Specifically mentioned was a number 10, which obviously you'd expect a number 10 will be on the list because we tried to make a move for a number 10. Edouard Spurtjan, we've heard that Leeds United considered making that move for in the last 90 minutes of the summer window, which obviously isn't going to work because you've got to work out the sort of dynamics of getting the funding sorted. Didn't happen. So of course you go back in January, and eventually you'll be able to sort of add a little bit to that squad and everything should be good. The Mallorca match has just kicked off, by the way. I'll be keeping a little bit of an eye on it just to see how Mateo is doing. He has already done half a step over, then tripped over his own feet after 32 seconds. So that was nice. And a right winger. We knew a right winger was going to be on the list because we knew that we made that move for Harry Wilson. That move for Harry Wilson then proceeded to fall through. If we were able to get that done, I think we'd be in a lot more of a comfortable situation right now. I think we would have been in a spot where we can take the game to other sides a little bit more, like against Wolves, where in the second half we set off a little bit. I think if we've got Harry Wilson in that situation, we can bring him on, he can do the attacking stuff and cause them some problems in a new and unique and dynamic way. But we weren't able to do that because we didn't get that move done, which was a little bit of a shame. But the word is already coming out that Leeds are looking at doing stuff in January, which is quite nice. How do you mean Hollywood Perry conceding 5 against Arsenal? Like, there were, if you look goal for goal, all of those are chances that are not very easy to keep out of the back of your net. Like, none of those I'm going to blame Perry for. One of them was a penalty, 2 of them were from corners, one of them was Saka from basically no range blasted at him in a position where the ball ends up here. You can't rotate your arm that quickly as a goalkeeper. You just can't. That's not... Everything looks worse in slow motion, including fouls, including missed saves. So I'm not going to blame Lucas Perry for that one in the slightest. And then you've got the one where Gyökeres cuts inside and the shot has to come through 4 or 5 different people. So I'm not going to be too mad at Lucas Perry for that one going a little bit wrong. Also, Tyler Adams is being a little bit of a pain because apparently he said he couldn't care less what Leeds United fans think about his move to Bournemouth. So I hope he has a very, very bad day this weekend. Is the dream, because that's going to be quite fun. In terms of potential moves that we are looking at in January, though, there's a couple that have been linked in the past few days and weeks. So Stroikens, who currently plays for Anderlecht. Are Anderlecht playing tonight, or did they play yesterday? I'm going to have a look, because I know that we're playing one of the days, and I can't remember which one. Anderlecht played last night against Ghent. There we go. And Stroikens had a very, very good game. He scored a goal, subbed off because he took a little bit of a knock, which is a little bit of a shame, but will be fit by the time January comes around, so he's one of the players that is potentially on the list. In addition to that, we can probably see Spurtsham making the list again because his agent is actively pushing for a move. We know Leeds United have an interest. We know that Leeds United tried to make a move in the summer window. We'll see how that one goes. Those are the two that I would keep more of an eye on. Maybe also Harry Wilson, but I'm not completely certain what direction that one's going to go as of yet because we just don't know where those particular dominoes are going to fall. Is Wilson going to look elsewhere? Are Leeds United going to go back in for him or someone else? It's one of those difficult times where you can't really see where things are going to land until they do land. I can't understand why Leeds United have such PSR issues when you consider, as well as the 49ers investment, Leeds also have Red Bull investment on top, the biggest in Championship history, I believe. Right, okay, I'm going to bring out the whiteboard so I can do the numbers. So, when it comes to PSR stuff, I'm going to zoom in a touch. Am I going to zoom in a touch? I'll zoom into there. That'll do. And then I'm going to bring out the pen. The pen of maths. We all love the pen of maths, don't we? We need a jingle for the whiteboard. I will let you know if I can think of a jingle. I probably won't be able to, though. But let's start with some text, shall we? And we will go with... Oh, what was the number? 13. There we go. So £13 million is the amount that you're allowed to lose for a season in the Championship, right? 35 is what you're allowed to lose for a season in the Premier League. What happened, because we went from Premier League, we got relegated. Fine, good, whatever, we know that that happened. I'm going to move these completely out of the way of this so I don't get the weird purple lines flashing up. So, Leeds United in the 22-23 season get relegated, but they were allowed to lose this much money in that year. The next year, in the Championship, they're allowed to lose this, 13 million. Because allowable losses run over a 3-year period. You can lose more than 35 million in this season, but as a result, you need to lose less than that in this season to balance everything out. And in an ideal world where we do what Leicester did or what Southampton did, you bounce right back up again and you're back to the 35 million, which would be lovely. That would be absolutely wonderful. We would have 83 million pounds to lose over this period, which will give us a little bit more flexibility. However, we didn't do that. Instead, we did this, where lost in the playoff final, fine, all good. Some of us got to see Leeds at Wembley. Wasn't a great time, we lost, but the vibe is still whatever. Which means that we get a second season, which means that instead this season gets knocked off, and this is what it looks like. So, over this 3-year period, we are now allowed to lose £51 million rather than, quick maths in the head, 83. I don't know if that adds up, but I'm going to roll with it. Somewhere I've gone wrong. 61.83. There we go. So we're allowed to lose £61 million over the 3-year period, which, fine, cool, whatever. But what's effectively happened is... in this year and in this year, which are the 2 seasons that we tried to get promoted, the wage bills were massive. And the transfer fees that we ended up paying were massive. So in this year, we will have made a just big loss. Which is not good, and we need to balance that out by not making a big loss in a different year, which brings us over to here. Because a lot of people will then point to this year and they will go, yeah, cool, but we made a lot of transfer fees here. This loss is too big. So here we have fees balance this loss. Which means that in terms of the amount of money that we are able to spend on transfers and wages and stuff, this is what we're left with. I don't know the specific amount of money that we are allowed to lose, that we are allowed to lose, there we go, thank you words, well done brain, this year, but it means that all this considered, Leeds United are allowed to spend in a different font for some reason, which is definitely not going to infuriate me in a few minutes, £100 million. £100 million, which is already going to a fairly hefty wage bill, which Sunderland won't necessarily have to deal with, which is going to a lot of fees for players, which we have roughly spent around £100 million, which, fine, which is also going to go to making sure that, effectively, we're not in too much deep shit. And on the other side of the situation, you have Sunderland, who you might know will have 13 million, 13 million, 35 million in the same way that we do. But what they were able to do was sell some players, which we completely failed to do. So, if we consider Joe Bellingham, and then some other lad, because they made 2 pretty big sales in the summer. So Job was 40, the other lad was 10, which adds up to 50 million, right? And you might think, cool, that's another 50 million pounds that they're able to spend. That's not strictly how that works. Instead, you can amortize it. So we'll say that the average length of a contract for a Sunderland player is 4 years. Which means that over that period of time per year, you effectively, on the PSR perspective, pay the fee divided by 4 years. So instead of this being 50, this turns into 200. And yes, you would still have to put down £50 million per year for each year of those contracts, but that's not too much of an issue if you're able to stay in the Premier League. The issue that we dealt with was we weren't able to sell any players, which means that, in essence, whilst we can amortise the fees that we are paying, we're not able to amortise anything beyond that. We're not able to increase the amount of potential losses that we can get, and therefore the amount that we can amortise into, if that makes sense. I'm hoping that makes sense, and I'm hoping that the financial analyst that is often in the chat isn't here right now, because I feel like I might have phrased that really, really badly. But that sums up why Sunderland were able to throw so much more money at this than we were, because it wasn't strictly for space in terms of PSR. It was for, well, it wasn't for the amount of allowable losses, it was for the fact that they're not making those losses in the first place. So Job was 35, Watson was 10. So instead of 40 and 10, then that becomes 45, 180 rather than 200. But also Clark, Stewart, Ekwa, Lehigh, and Traindris. That's the sort of situation behind all the FFP stuff, and that explains why we weren't able to throw quite as much money at things as Sunderland were, because Sunderland were just in a little bit of a better position for it anyway. Like, that's the general feeling of it. Also, I've forgotten to run this GIF. You can like and comment and subscribe and everything. That would be massively appreciated. Thank you very much, everybody. Anyway, but yeah, it's tricky. What about the money recouped for Repair Somerville, Archie Cresswell, Kamara, all in Leeds second season? Surely it helps balance out any losses. It does, but I feel like for the most part that balances off a lot of the previous amortised losses. So the season before we get relegated, Leeds United spend a terrifying sum of money. So I'm going to quickly find out the specific amount, but it is not small. So go to Leeds United, cool, and then transfers and rumours, all transfers. So in the season that Leeds United go down, we signed Ruter for €40 million. I'm working in euros because Transfermarkt works in euros. We're gonna have to roll with it. Aronson, 33 million. Sinistera, 25. Tyler Adams, 17. Christensen 13, Voba 12, Rocker 12, JB 6, Nonto 4.5. McKennie had a loan fee of 1.25 million euros. That adds up to 163 million, which is quite a lot. So when we're talking about surely the sales of Georgie, Somerville, Archie, Cresswell, Kamara will recoup it. We got 162.9 million euros from that summer, which isn't as much as we spent in the Jesse Marsh transfer window, which is terrifying. To be completely clear about that, that's a horrifying amount of money. And that sort of helps to explain it, because whilst you can amortise fees so they come up on the books in the future, that's where a lot of those numbers come in. So PSR on Jorginho Rutter paid 40 million euros for him. We'll say it was a 5-year contract, so 8 million euros per year. 1.5-ish years, which would make him worth about 28 million euros in terms of his book value at that point. So when we sell Georgie, on PSR it only goes down as a profit of 18 million euros. And then you consider the amount of money that we were losing in terms of wages, that's where a lot of that went. It went on paying for the absolute chaos that happened in the years prior. I say years prior, mainly that 1 year, because the season before that, it was just James, Firpo, Harrison, Christopher Claassen. That's it. It's the Marsh year that absolutely ruins the finances in so many different ways, including relegation, but mainly the 160 odd whatever million euros. Because all that money needs to be amortised over multiple years of books until you sell those particular players. So when... let's pick a good example here, shall we? Rasmus Christensen, for example. When we loaned him out the first time, he's just losing book value at Leeds United. If we sell him at that point, brilliant. But that's not particularly useful to us. And you get in that weird trap where you need to wait a period of time so their book value goes down, but you can sell them for a book profit. And the way that PSR works is absolute chaos. And I'm not pretending that I know everything about it at all, but it's tricksy to get a little bit of an understanding of, I think. And that's a general idea of how it causes pretty big issues for us, I think. And why it's something that we need to be a little bit careful of. Because if we go down this season, there are some chunky fees to be amortised. 113 million euros, 100 million pounds-ish, which is a lot more manageable than the 160, and if we are selling a bunch of those players, we will do so for an amount that gives us a level of profit, because that has been said by Robbie Evans. He's gone through the entire thing and gone, look, yes, there are a couple of clauses, but they tend to give the club profit, which is a good spot for us to be in, to be honest, because it's significantly better than the spot that we were in last time out. Anyway, I'm not going to stream for too long, because I'm going to pay a little bit of attention to this Mallorca match, because I have a little bit of data that I want to share. Or I will have a little bit of data that I want to share that I think could be quite interesting on Mateo Joseph and roughly how he's seen over at Mallorca and all that kind of stuff, which I think could be fun. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to leave that there. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, please pop a like on the stream. It's always massively appreciated. Are Leeds in a good position if we go down? I don't think anyone is in a good position if we go down. I think we've prepared better than a lot of clubs have, though. We'll be in a better position than some sides, is the way that I will leave that. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the stream. If you did, please pop a like on it. It's massively appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't yet as well. Become a channel member. It's absolutely wonderful. And leave a comment too. That's absolutely wonderful. And it means that the algorithm might like me again. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys later. In fact, I will see if there's anyone to redirect to before I do that, because I want to see if I can share the love. What time is that? Oh, Matty, that's in an hour and a bit. Right, I'm going to redirect you over to Matty. What channel's the Mallorca match on? I don't know about in the UK. I know it's on DAZN in Spain, and I know that I get a DAZN subscription through work. So that's how I'm watching it, but I don't know about you. I don't know how you would be able to. But I'm going to redirect everyone over to Matty's channel. If we could just leave a nice comment, like a happy birthday, because it's his channel's birthday today, that'd be wonderful. And yeah, hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you later. Toodaloo. There might be an under-21s watch along. I've not decided yet. I forgot they were playing. Maybe. We'll find out. Ta-ra.